Hola, hola. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, my YouTube channel. Soy Cristian Landaeta, introducing a very interesting and very dear character in the rock music, the local scene, the Latin American scene, particularly because, as you can see back at the back, Genesis is one of my favorite bands. I think it's always been, and it's one of the bands that became the most amazing and impressive for me when I was in my teenage days, together with King Crimson, Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Pink Floyd. And then I took a long time to discover other bands, let's say Camel, Renaissance, Renaissance, as some call them, etc. So Genesis is still my big love in progressive rock, and I have a very big pleasure of introducing you to Mr. Thomas Price. Hi, Thomas. Welcome to my channel.
Nice to meet you, Christian. Thank you very much for the invitation. Okay, so I'm very glad to talk about music. In this case, what we do with genetics, that is a tribute to Genesis, to the early Genesis stuff, mainly Gabriel era, but also we are doing some early Collins stuff, A Trip to the Tail, Wind and Wuthering, and we'd like to play the next year the Duke album and to recreate the Lyceum ballroom from 1980.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Well, we have a long set of, I have a long set of questions, so why don't we start? I'd like to ask you, Thomas, having been born in 1986, if I'm not wrong, what are the first,
You're right.
Yeah, what are the first memories you have, your first contact with music? Because I don't think that you were born and you began singing. It's Genesis. You must have been passed through a long phase.
Yes. Well, as I told Claudio Bustamante yesterday, there is like a connection between genetics, the name of our band, and my passion, and I think my gift for singing. I think that's my talent in music, and is something genetic, because my grandmother was a very good singer, and although she was an amateur singer, she sang with a big aggregation in the Teatro Municipal de Santiago in the 1930s, and she sang there a lot of operettas, like operas, but like reduced, in duration, like some little operas. And also her grandmother was a very good singer too. And well, my father has all the, the newspaper collection of that years, where my grandmother appeared, like singing as a mezzo soprano. And I think there is something like in my genes, because for me, music is something very like from the intuition, I didn't study music like in a formal way when I was a kid. I just began to sing, and I am the youngest of 7 siblings, and with my brothers and sisters, I played a lot of music, especially with my brother Juan Jose, that he played a lot of guitar. He studied classical guitar, and he was the one who introduced me to most of prog rock and other music too, but especially Rush, Jethro Tull, Genesis, and I was 5 years old, and I used to listen that all day. So I don't have any memories of child music. I'd say, you know, like Mazapan, that stuff of music, like for children. I don't remember listening to that stuff anytime. So that was my beginning in music.
Do you remember having some favorite tunes, some favorite songs by any of the
Yes,
bands
of
that you
course.
mentioned?
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. And it's not only prog rock. I used to listen all the stuff that was in my house. Not only my brother also listened a lot to other music, like especially Argentinian music. That is what led me to genetics. After all, he listened a lot to Piazzolla, for example.
Oh,
Yes, he bought all the Piazzolla's discography. So I listen different genres of music, and my father, for example, loved the tango and also opera. As I told you, because of my grandmother. So my father like also today listen all the time in the house opera. So
okay.
so yes, and I sang a lot of rock and roll music with my brother, the Beatles, uh, and the memories that you asked me. For example, for me, the Hemispheres album by Rush. That is like I think that the first milestone in in my history of listening and singing. I don't know till until 18 I sang like a countertenor, you know. So I before I like have my definite voice, so I sang a lot of Rush stuff. And Hemispheres for me, when I was 5 years old, I remember to listen that every day. And then Genesis, when I was 12, 13, my brother one day came with some albums and Foxtrot and Selling England. And then it was like something special. So because I love all that music, especially Jethro Tull, um, and maybe other English bands like Dire Straits that are not precisely prog rock, but Genesis for me in that moment was something quite peculiar. I like it engaged me like instantly, and then I began to sing that every day, and I was like fascinated with Gabriel's voice, and despite I didn't have that voice, I sang that every day, and Sabbath Rally five times every day, and so that was my learning process in music.
So I thought I was a fan. I was wrong. I had a question for you about that. I was going to ask you because, you know, I sometimes tell the story when I first heard Genesis was on the live album when I was like in 15, 14. And then the first thing that caught my attention was the organ introduction of Tony Banks in Watcher of the Skies. That was quite obscure and very
Yes,
interesting and mysterious. And I had been
yes, like Bach, you know, like
uh-huh.
Baroque
Yeah, but
music.
but it was more obscure to me. So, and I was at
Yes,
the same time, I've always been a big fan of film music, especially fantasy and horror film music. I grew up watching movies on TV, so I related that to that style. And then when I heard "Selling England by the Pound," I was very impressed by the lyrical quality, the sounds, the way that they built up the melodies, and Tony Banks' solo on the piano, on the mellotron. Everything was like very, I don't know, maybe you can help me. It was like music floating in some way. It was very luminous, very, there was a lot of beauty in the music, but at the same time, a lot of power. So that was quite
yes.
unique. And
yes, I think the same
Mhm.
that you, because I would say that Genesis music, it has something different to compared to for example, Yes or King
Exactly.
Crimson, like the similar bands of the time. Maybe Genesis doesn't reach the same complexity. I think, like in some way, you know, like it's not something very complex in the way, for example, of I don't know. Maybe I'm I'm saying something wrong, but it doesn't have like a reload of scales like speed, you know, but has some beauty that I think the other bands didn't reach all the time.
Mhm.
That's what I think. For example, Yes has maybe for me some albums like Close to the Edge or Fragile that are like something really beautiful
Masterpieces.
and
Yeah.
overwhelming, you know.
Yes.
But yes, but Tales from Topographic Oceans to me
Mhm.
doesn't say anything to me. Maybe
Wow.
I'm a sinner. I'm a sinner maybe in prog rock, but
No, no.
but that's what I think.
I think kind of similar to you, but maybe we're going to get to be stoned for what we're saying. Anyway, um, and about the Gabriel era and the Collins era, you just mentioned that the next things with genetics is Lyceum, the show,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the early stage of Phil Collins. In my case, I think that Collins did a fantastic job when Gabriel left, especially Trick and Wind and Wuthering. But then it's another story. I don't want to extend myself on that. So how do you feel? We were talking before this interview about voices and the quality of voices, and
Yes.
you said that everyone is different and there's no competition in this. And I said that you have to me you sound much closer to the original Peter Gabriel than other people that have been doing tributes in other latitudes. But then I don't know, what's your view of assuming Gabriel's or Collins' personality, which is the main, people are expecting how this band is going to sound when they go to see genetics.
Well, first of all, I like to say that both Gabriel and Collins for me are geniuses of popular music or rock music. And well, in that type of music, they are like fabulous, both of them. But when we talk about the voice itself, like the quality of the voice, as I told you yesterday, in fact, it, every voice is unique, and well, you can like classify the voices in some vocal range. You know, you can say that somebody is a 10 or other a baritone. I don't know, a bass. But in any of that classifications, you can like immerse yourself and find very different qualities like inside those types, you know. And for example, as I always considered Gabriel's and Collins' voices, I think that like when they were young, in the 70s, both both of them sang like in a tenor vocal range. Okay, but the Gabriel's voice is different in the sense it's like I don't know in English how to say it exactly, but maybe it's a dramatic tenor. You know, in Spanish you say tenor dramático. You know, it's like a tenor like to establish some comparison, like I don't know, Freddie Mercury or Gustavo Cerati, for example. voices that is on that range of tenor, but has like a much body, you know, like or the color or the timbre are like obscure, you know, more are darker, you know. But Collins' voice is like something a tenor ligero, you know. So with a thin voice, you know, it's maybe very similar on the range, but it's not exactly the same. So you can hear the difference on the extremes of the vocal range. Collins has too much. It's very easy for Collins in that time to sing on his high stream, you know, but for Gabriel not so much. But when you hear like Gabriel singing on Carpet Crawlers, an A or a G low, you know, it sounds very good, and because he had more. He was versatile in singing on the low, on his low or middle range, and when he goes like higher, he ever put all his rock, you know. But for Collins, it's not the same. Um, I don't see you, Christian.